first presenter will be Jennifer Tisthammer. The talk will be about our cultural and ecological field station and an interdisciplinary framework. If you all can give me one moment to share that presentation.
Vanessa, you can hold off and we can just talk for like a minute or two. Okay. And then pull it up. Just pull it up a little bit into it. It's not so critical. First thing I want to do is just get a great view of everybody who has joined us today. Thank you so much to everyone, to our partners, to our collaborators, our researchers, our speakers. I just want to say thank you very much. This is an exciting day for us. We launched our field station on Earth Day 2015. It's a momentous day in the Deering Estate trajectory. Although we had been working collaboratively with our community on long-term ecological research for more than 20 years. So this today, launching our first symposium, science symposium, is also a very exciting time for us. I want to continue with a little bit of thank yous. First, I would like to give a huge shout out to Dr. Vanessa Trujillo. I would like everyone to unmute and give her a round of applause. She is an amazing voice at the Deering Estate. She is an amazing ambassador of the Deering Estate, and she is an amazing voice in our community on conservation science. And without this, we could not have this wonderful symposium. So Vanessa, thank you very much for all of who you are and all of what you do. I also want to say thank you to the Deering Estate Foundation, who through a generous gift has brought in the cultural or the academic residencies and has made possible our cultural and ecological field station. We have our current and past president, current president Lita DiValdieso, and past president Becky Matkoff joining here today as representatives, as well as others. They have also sponsored our Deering Estate Fellows, a first-time endeavor for us that has sort of put our money where our mouth is in engaging scientists and future conservation leaders or current conservation leaders in our community. So that is also very exciting. And then I have to give a shout out to FIU and particularly the School of Earth and Environment on a number of different levels. One is that while we partner with many academic institutions, both in our community and abroad, FAU, University of Miami, University of Florida, Ball State, Indiana, Indiana State University, amongst some of the Miami-Dade College, amongst some of the institutions that we partner with. It is FIU, their You Teach program, the College of Earth and Environment, the Honors College, who we partner most closely with. I want to thank the faculty, the administration, the students very specifically for their efforts to bring purpose and focus to our research framework here at the Deering Estate. I want to do a special shout out to Dr. Evelyn Geyser on a personal level, who without crazy days of two science ladies sitting in a room together with boxes and charts and arrows and a lot of heart and a lot of thought, put together a very thoughtful science framework that has guided the research and collaborations that we have done over the last 5 years. And so, Dr. Geyser, I just have hearts popping for all of who you are and all of what we do. So thank you very much. For those of you who don't know me, I am the director of the Deering Estate. And the Deering Estate is a cultural and ecological field station and historic landmark with more than 10,000 years of human history and an unprecedented diversity and unique concentration of natural and built resources in a single site. It makes it wicked cool for research, discovery, and learning. Before I get into our science framework, I do also want to take a point of personal privilege and talk about our parks. The Deering Estate is embedded in the Miami-Dade County Parks, Recreation, and Open Spaces, the third largest accredited municipal park system in the nation. In the next couple of weeks, a little teaser here, I will be taking on some additional roles within our Parks Department to help define, bring focus to, elevate, and expand the conservation and resiliency voice of parks in our community, in our region, and abroad, and more to come on that. As many of you know, I am a graduate of FIU. I'm working on my third degree. So undergraduate, graduated from FIU's Master in Environmental Studies program, and I'm currently working on my PhD. And so, with this, I have devoted not only my personal studies and my professional studies, but my professional life to parks. Parks and park and recreation agencies are on the front line of a multitude of resiliency and conservation issues within and outside of the communities they serve. And this is a critical point of place in our community. We have seen recently over this past year, attendance in our parks increase 2- and 4-fold during the pandemic, as matters of health and wellness has repositioned itself as a top priority in local livelihoods. We are also on the forefront of social equity issues, creating and stewarding parks and open spaces, gardens, wellness programs, urban redevelopment for individuals, families, and others to come together in dialogue, commonality, and in community. Conservation, sustainability, and resiliency in the context of the human environment are critical topics that are addressed daily by park and recreation professionals across the country, and wonderfully here locally. On the screen, and Vanessa, if you can pull it up, I hope that you all can can see the image of our science framework that I'm going to talk about in the next couple of minutes. Let's see. So, Vanessa, are you, there you go. Can everybody, yep, there you go. We're just gonna work off of the one slide today, and there is quite a bit on this slide. But this is the science framework, as I mentioned, that Dr. Geysers and others have collaborated on over the years. And it serves as our model for the many yet important, and I need to emphasize, interconnected key thematic areas of study. A lot of what we are looking at is sort of the interface of people and natural environments, this concept of the public. And so our big question that we are looking at, and a big focus of my personal studies, is how do public perceptions of cultural and ecological resource value and participation in decision-making influence socio-ecological systems, research, management, and communication to drive change and outcomes for local resiliency planning. To my professors in the room, this is the draft statement, so you can put your red pens away for a little bit. But it is what I hope that you're getting from this is that we are really looking at this interconnectivity of the human and natural systems broadly across economic, environmental, and societal sectors. And what this does is it has many different linkages as an overarching framework for the Deering estate, and also for research in general. There are linkages to communities, social equity and environmental justice, as I've mentioned, ecotourism, the economy, municipal park planning, governmental decision-making, and interesting perspectives in natural and cultural resource management in the context of a built environment where fragmented and or a connected portfolio of several small ecosystems versus one single large habitat dominate the landscape. Some core concepts of cultural and ecological resource management. One of the other exciting things about this overarching framework is that it also yields a series of additional study questions and opens the field of learning and discovery to a very broad spectrum of perspectives and contexts. For example, how does human behavior and decision-making interact with biophysical processes, past and present, to drive change in outcomes? More specifically, and some of the research that we are working on with archaeologists and Vanessa and I have been involved with that I'll talk a little bit more about is what can past theories of migration and climate tell us about our fate as a region and a culture? Others is, as many of you know, we pre-COVID time period and a little bit differently during the pandemic, the Deering estate has served more than 20,000 K through 12 students, teachers, and their families on an annual basis. So a big component of our research is just looking at how do learners learn at all ages, at all points? What models of individual and social learning influence stakeholder engagement and our knowledge of resources in order to make and support the interactions or the intersections of conservation, economy, and society. Stakeholders are a very important part of our research. What levels and models of stakeholder engagement or management of stakeholders through the decision-making process, pre, during, evaluation, and onward, are optimum for socio-ecologic system and management, and to drive change in outcomes for local resiliency planning. A key component of some of my work in my PhD studies is what stakeholders have been unintentionally or intentionally marginalized from decision-making. We are all accustomed to the power interest matrix in driving how we categorize and evaluate stakeholders, but that power interest matrix leaves some very important groups out of the decision-making process or relegates them to a form of tokenism. What does resiliency look like for Miami, for the South Dade community versus North Broward or West Palm Beach? What does it look like at the state level and at a global level? These are all very different perspectives on what resiliency looks like for a people, for a community, for a region. What does it look like for the Deering estate or our park system as a unit that serves as critical infrastructure to Miami? These are all different questions that we get to explore alongside others at the Deering estate. And then, generally, what linkages can be forged between conservation, community resiliency planning, and economic development? Our field station has collaborated with many institutions over the years. And again, I'm going to say none more consistent than our colleagues at FIU. And so, I just want to punctuate again the importance of that relationship. And then I also, by the way, shamelessly recruit from FIU. And there are a couple of positions within our system and coming up in the next couple of months that I will be reaching out to you for. So I'm going to switch a little bit. We can keep this slide up. I'm going to switch a little bit to just give you some updates on my own research and some of the research that we've been leading here at the Deering estate. As many of you know, And we will have a presentation later on today with some of our colleagues on this. But for the past 8 or 9 years, many of you are aware that I have served as the project manager alongside others, including Dr. Trujillo and principal archaeologist and geologist like Jeff Ransom, Joe Mankowski, and Dr. Floria alongside FPAN, who you will hear from later, on the long-term study of human occupation of Florida. Specifically, my work sort of post our research. And to let you know, we filed all of the technical reports with the state in early Q1, Q2, so early spring to summer of 2020. We filed all of the technical reports and documentation with the state of Florida. But since that time period, I have been working on a very narrow aspect of research that came up during the course of our 8 to 9 years. And that's been to analyze a gap in the human occupation record of South Florida. Sometime after Paleo Indians migrated into the area and set up several encampments. And then there's a gap before sort of middle to late archaic people began to, or where we find evidence of middle to late archaic people in this same region. The idea of continuous habitation in a specific region gives us strong evidence of migration patterns. When you have a gap in that record, it may point to some very, in this case, short-term, but impactful environmental changes in this community. So later this summer and early into the fall, you will see some of that work that's been funded by the state of Florida and the Deering Estate Foundation that I'm also doing in collaboration with some of my own PhD work that specifically speak to Florida's resilient past and how sea level rise may have interrupted human occupation in the region for a span of about 1,200 years. And so it's a very narrow time frame in the sort of entire framework of deep time as well as Florida time. And it's a very small sort of record, but an important one when you're looking at human habitation and its impact on resiliency. And then this semester, I'm working on a publication, a review of stakeholder marginalization in socio-ecologic systems management and resiliency planning in Miami. Because, and this is sort of the, how does the past influence contemporary time? It does in a number of ways. We know that in a nation with more than 285 coastal cities and towns with populations where half the residents and businesses are located in elevations of less than 1 meter above sea level, Florida is considered to be the most at risk ground zero for climate change impacts. Amongst cities, towns in Florida's Miami-Dade County, or our beloved Miami, is the state's most populous county. There are currently 2.7 million residents and more than 24 million average overnight visitors to the city pre-COVID. And on a statewide, national and global scale, Miami is considered the most vulnerable coastal city to sea level rise economically. We are the canary in the coal mine in many ways. And while sometimes it sounds a little bit dire to put out there, that means that Miami has a wonderful place in our planetary learning where we can adapt and begin to inform how resiliency trends. And it's an exciting time for us to be a part of. Where I have sort of devoted my time has been influenced very largely by my efforts to document voices of our Native Americans and First People here at the Deering Estate. And a lot of that is about bringing voices forward and bringing voices forward that aren't always forward. We know that in Miami, communities, distinct classifications of groups, and even individuals have been shown to differ in their threat exposure, their inherent sensitivity, and their adaptive capacity to respond to and cope with climate change and the related social, economic, and environmental uncertainties that accompany it. And while climate change varies across time, geographic location, community resource level, and economic sufficiency across communities and amongst individuals within community, it tends to impact those individuals and groups that are already most vulnerable. And what do I mean by this? Vulnerable individuals and groups include those with low income, some communities of color, immigrant groups, including those with limited English or national language proficiency, indigenous peoples, children and pregnant women, older adults, vulnerable occupational groups, persons with disabilities, and persons with pre-existing or chronic medical conditions. These, in many ways, are some of the stakeholders. These are the stakeholders of resiliency. And this is where I've chosen to spend a considerable amount of my studies of late to kind of focus and map some of those different groups. Because these stakeholders experience the impacts of climate change disproportionately and with a level of complexity in multiple and compounded ways. Miami, too, as a study site, and even the broader context of the state of Florida, has a long history of stakeholder marginalization, particularly in socio-ecological system management that began with the colonization of this region. So a lot of the work that I want to do and am doing presently is to shed more light on these issues with my personal and professional study endeavors. The Deering Estate and Miami present a very unique opportunity to do this. And as such, these are exciting times for the Deering Estate. These are exciting times for research into socio-ecological systems. Conservation, sustainability, and resiliency weave through all facets of what we do here at the Deering Estate and in parks. And because of that, this catapults park and recreation agencies from simple areas of play and relaxation to major agents of change in a community. And I'm excited to be here with all of you. Research, evidence-based practice, education, and sharing what we know encourages sustainable actions and activities that make all the work that we will see here today and countless other instances possible. Thank you to our presenters, our faculty, our educators, our researchers, our fellows, and our students, and our partners, those that support this important work to contribute on local and regional dialogues on science, conservation, and theory of practice. Thank you all. Thank you for all that you do. I'm happy to take any questions you might have right now. And Vanessa, if you want to stop sharing the slides so we can see some folks, that's absolutely okay. Anything? Oh my goodness. All righty. Is everybody there? Like say hello? Cool. Okay.
Okay, well,